Welcome back, Wizard. Why don't you tell us about your round two submission?
Sure. So my round two submission, Mirage opens up a lot. There's a bunch of kind of fun cards I thought of using at first. I wanted one of my other builds that I did not choose, but I was close to choosing was a Bazaar of Wonders Millstone deck. Bazaar of Wonders is an enchantment that when it comes into play, exiles your graveyard, both graveyards, and then players can't play a card if they have this card of the same name in their graveyard. And so I was going to just mill them in Bazaar, and it was pretty cool and definitely spicy, but felt a little clunky and disenchants everywhere, and it just was like, I don't know, didn't seem quite right. So I settled on, looked at a few other things, but I settled on this kind of sort of weird list, but also sort of super traditional list, and that it was a kind of a deck in actual 1994. It's basically a deck, it's just based around the card Balance, which is impossible to brew around a restricted card in traditional 93, 94, but given Mystical Tutor, now that's kind of a thing.
Sure.
And also, like, Mystical Tutor is also awesome, and it allows like weird decks like Eureka and stuff like that to be much more consistent. I almost did that too, but like a slightly more consistent Eureka deck is also not super exciting. But I thought building around using 4 Mysticals to build around Balance, while Mystical in itself is not a super spicy card, because obviously you can just Mystical for Ancestral and draw 7s and whatever. That's not the greatest, coolest strategy in the world. If I'm Mysticaling for Balance literally every game, that's at least mildly interesting. And I'm basically I'm combining Balance with 4 copies of the Rack, because my goal is to just like blow my whole load, empty my hand, hopefully get a Rack out, maybe a copy, and then balance away the board, all the creatures, all the land, or all the hands, so I can just win with Racks. I'm also playing 3 Pauper's Cages from Mirage, which is kind of a poor man's Balance. It costs 3, and if you have 2 or less cards in your hand, it dings you for 2 on your upkeep. So it's just like a slightly less potent Balance, or less potent the Rack. In addition to that, I'm playing 4 Recalls, because really what I want to do is once I find the Balance and I balance once, I just want to get to more balances. So if you're able to just like build up your hand or get a creature threat out or something, I can just balance again. So I pretty much am just in the market for getting off as many balances as possible, hopefully with some Racks and Cages out to kind of win the game with a relatively quick clock. I have a bunch of pretty standard restricted cards. I'm not playing Wheel. The draw 7s aren't really great here because I'm balancing so aggressively, but I am playing the Time Twister just because I'm heavy blue, and sometimes you can just get a broken Time Twister draw. Some kind of interesting other things I'm playing. So Sylvan is a card in general I'm not super in love with, but Mirage offers the slow fetch lands. So you can get shuffles with Sylvan easily. Also, I'm playing the Mysticals, so I can get shuffles. So I have like 8 shuffle effects, which makes Sylvan a lot better. The sack lands I thought were very interesting, right? Because they fix the mana so well, right? Now all of a sudden you can pretty much get any color mana you want from these, and they're not City of Brasses, right? They don't ping you for damage, but they're slow as shit. And in a format like this, I don't know, sometimes having come into play tap land can just lose you the game. So I wasn't really sure how many to play. I settled on playing only 2 just to fix the mana up, and so I don't have to City of Brass myself to death and to get the shuffles for my 2 Sylvans. Let's see. So those, I'm playing 2 Mirage Sacklands, 4 Mysticals, 3 Pauper's Cages. My last Mirage card, this one's real bad, I think. I did it. It was a nod to the fact Jonas's my opponent this round, the one deck that I did know about is a pretty aggressive red deck that deals a lot of damage. It's not like your father's red burn deck, but it's aggressive. And I know he's a big fan of aggressive red strategies. And so I thought that the ability to gain life could be important in this matchup. I actually almost played a Stream of Life till I found Vitalizing Cascade, I think is the Mirage card. That's just like a better Stream of Life if you can pay. It's like green, white, X, gain X plus 3 life. So it's just a better Stream of Life. It's also an instant. Then I found Mangara's Blessing, which is a 3-mana instant that just gains you 5 life. And if they randomly make you discard it, you gain 2 life and return it to your hand end of turn. So I had all these cool life gain cards. And then I found Energy Bolt, which is a less efficient life gain card, but it also doubles as a fireball in the late game. So I'm playing 1 Energy Bolt. It's red, white, X sorcery, gain X life or dome them for X.
Mm-hmm.
So it can finish them off if my racks are doing damage, or if I need to gain like 4 life to get out of bolt range or something versus some aggressive red for his aggressive red builds. I can do that. Other than that, it has 4 copies because I have all the racks and the moxes and the paupers cages and all that general stuff. So it's that kind of ties the room together as copy usually does. But that, for the most part, that's the whole deck. I own, a bunch of lands. The one more interesting card is I'm playing 1 Bazaar of Baghdad to A, power through my Sylvans, and B, I can like lower my hand size for balance and naturally dig for balance. I can also mystical for a card, play Bazaar, and draw the card that turn, like which will usually be balance. Hopefully I can mystical for balance, draw balance, lower my hand size, and cast balance in 1 turn. That's kind of the dream there. One of them felt like it was a reasonable enough ad. But that's it. Other than that, it's a bunch of good restricted card. Not quite every restricted card like last time, but a bunch of them.
Yeah, I mean, I remember playing some Reanimator decks where you were kind of all in, and I felt like balance was one of the best cards there because you pretty much got all of the modes to do whatever you wanted. So, like every time you cast it, it's probably the deck I've played where balance was the most insane every time. Like, there's some games where you have balance, you're like, well, I can't really exactly cast this, depending on what your deck is, right?
Yeah.
But there was never a scenario where that was true when I had Bazaar back then.
Oh, no. Like, Bazaar puts it over the top. It fuels everything in the deck. I couldn't play more than 1, but like in general, when you have a bunch of artifact mana and no creatures, balance is obviously absurd. And like that's exactly what I have here. My real big weakness, sadly, is to Mishra's Factory, because I can't balance away that creature. I'm trying to either race it, or I think I'm playing a Strip Mine just because of Mishra's Factory, and I'm playing 1 Disenchant main deck to potentially Mystical for or whatever, and in a pinch to kill Mishra's Factory because it's obviously a good card. But I knew Mishra's Factory was going to be, a tough one for me, and it's obviously, played in every deck and every version of this format, so I figured it was going to be reasonably popular. I'm hoping to dodge it or not get, factoried out too hard.
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable thing to kind of avoid because you have to walk the fine line of getting votes for your deck and also winning. So I feel like people maybe are a little less likely to put Mishra's Factory in their deck overall.
I think you're right. I'm banking on that at least a little bit.
Yeah. I also, for some reason, I feel like at some point I've heard you mention Pauper's Cage, so I'm entertained that it's in your deck.
Well, Miser's Cage is one of my favorite cards.
Oh, Miser's Cage.
It's the poor man's vice. This does the same thing. If they have 5 or more, they take 2. And Pauper's Cage is just the analog to that. Both of those cages are cards that I have tons of nostalgia for and have played both back, and more Miser's Cages than Pauper's, but I played them both back in the day. And I love all these strategies. Like, I'm a huge fan of these. Like, the other deck that I was very close to playing but felt actually slightly less spicy than this sort of turbo balancy deck was just the Turbo Vice, Ankh, Miser's Cage, Stormseeker, Damage You deck. And that was near the top of my list. And it was literally the first deck I built. 4 Vices, 4 Ankhs, 4 Miser's Cages, 4 copies, 3 or 4 Stormseekers. Maybe Howling Mines. I forgot the exact build. But that was like the first place I went. Until I realized that I can synthetically play 6 balances in my deck with Tutor, Mysticals, and Balance, and I thought that would be a fun thing to try.
Yeah.
Just you never can build around a restricted card in traditional 93-94, and now you can.
Sure. Yeah, and I also you kind of mentioned this before, but I feel like in normal old school, Sylvan Library is this card that people have a lot of opinions about, and some people really love to play it, other people just never play it. I'm usually more on the side of not playing it. And I like here that you can get a lot more value out of that card and just make it a little bit more worthwhile. It's obviously really good with Bazaar as well, right? I mean,
just like any way to get a fresh top makes it real good. Like, what's the old adage now? I think people to use modern terms, if you can scry 3, that's it's pretty much worth the card. Most people think in most formats, and so a fresh shuffle with the Sylvan is basically a scry 3, right? Sure. So you're almost getting your card back that way. And Bazaar obviously powers it up, and I have so many shuffles. It made sense here, even though I don't. And I'm a deck that's just digging for pieces in general, right? So it's not like I'm just a pile of generic good cards that I want to cast and hope to win. Sylvan's horrible in those decks, right? Here, I'm digging for very specific things, and like just the card, even the generic card selection, even if I can only use it once, could matter just because it might dig me 3 cards deeper to find that mystical, to find that balance, you know?
Yeah. So given you know your opponent and you know what they generally like to play, what do you think your chances are in this actual round?
I'm a,
And from both perspectives, right? You have to play here, and you're also looking for votes. So what do you think?
honest,
What are your concerns? What are your thoughts?
I talked to a few people, and some people seem to think that this was probably not spicy enough. I kind of went against their conventional wisdom. I kind of thought this was pretty damn spicy for a deck full of restricted cards and for mysticals, because it's not like I'm just mysticaling for ancestral, you know, like I'm literally mysticaling for my one of balance and hoping to build a whole game plan around that one card. So I think the deck is reasonably spicy. Clearly, I could have gone spicier, but I think it kind of toes that line between it has a bunch of both being a good deck and being a spicy deck, I think, or I'd like to think.
Mhm.
And I think it's pretty good as long as he doesn't factory me too hard, or if he's not playing some kind of like Howling Mine strategy, that would be pretty terrible for me. Even like
Sure.
draw sevens aren't the worst thing because I can hopefully just balance them away. Like if he gets a draw seven after I balance the world away, that's not great.
Mm.
But in general, if he plays an early draw seven, I can hopefully just balance through it at some point as well. That's not that scary. And I know
Mm.
he loves red card. Maybe he's going to throw me for a loop and not play red cards. So I could see him doing that, trying to double up on me. But generally, balance has game against everything. So I'm honestly not super worried about much other than not having a fast clock and him just killing me with 3 factories. That's really
Yeah.
the number one
Yeah.
thing.
That makes sense. Yeah, I mean, this round is interesting because you have to play both of your decks. So building this deck, you know the other deck that they built for round one, right? Since you
Right.
know your opponent in advance. So there's a little bit of like thinking that can go on of, well, do I want this deck to be good against their previous round deck? What are they going to build for this round? There's a lot of
There's so
unknowns.
much going on and so many layers, and you could go so
Mm.
deep on this. And to be brutally honest, I've actually been just become a little bit burnt out, like from after NoobCon and setting up all the MobsterCon stuff and like all the
Yeah,
Neos monthlies and the summer and just all this stuff. I'm like I'm losing it a little bit. So like while I went deep at first and I brewed 6 or 7 decks for this, but I didn't like have a spreadsheet with like his round one deck is this and his round two options could potentially be these things and this matchup
sure.
works this well, and like I just didn't do any of that crap. I just said, this deck is pretty good, it's spicy and good, and I kind of like playing it. It has cards I enjoy, and I'm just gonna fucking run it and see what happens.
Yeah,
I didn't really go super crazy like if I had infinite time I would have.
yeah. Well, I mean, even if you have infinite time, I'm not even sure if it's
It's
meaningful.
Is it solvable, right?
Yeah,
Like
I
I don't
don't
even
know if
think
it
it is.
is. So
I don't think it is.
there's so few data points, right? It's just Jonas in this case. So you're just using what you know about Jonas, I guess.
And
And
that's all I know is
yes, yeah,
he likes red cards.
he does like red cards. Yeah, that's
Right.
true.
That's literally a couple other things that I considered. I'll mention real quick. Were
Sure.
I had a shallow grave deck with it was like an kind of or obviously shallow grave reanimates, but it had like Bazaars and Colossus and Diamond Valleys,
Hmm.
and I would just like I'll actually bring it up, but like try and shallow grave out a Colossus. Oh crap! I brought the list up. I can't even look at a text list anymore. But I would try and get a Colossus in the graveyard, shallow grave it, and then sack it to the Diamond Valley to gain 9 life, and so it wouldn't be removed from the game, and just
Hmm.
kind of go off that way. That deck was pretty fun. A Maro get-in deck, which is just whatever. Maro is just kind of theoretically a better Erdem if I can keep my hand size up. I
Hmm.
tried to do some work with Cadaver's Bloom and Lich, and
Hmm.
it just felt too janky. Like it's just there's probably something there, but even if you find that thing, it's still like a tier 4 deck. Like I was just like, I don't know, it's not my style. Also, Infernal Contract with Lich, I kind of wanted to do some work with, like ditch Dark Rituals and power it out that way.
Hmm.
And just like Eureka, Eureka was another one I wanted to do with the 4 mysticals to set it up, and also the haste guys, because you can play Spirit of the Night, although it's sadly a legend. And Volcanic
Hmm.
Dragon is also a 4/4 haste, so you can just like one shot them with all the haste guys in Eureka. You could just like play one dragon and like doppelganger it a bunch of times and kill them in one shot. But I don't
Hmm.
know. This deck spoke to me, and it's just cards that I really like and enjoy playing, and it seems fun. So I just
Yeah.
landed here without going crazy.
Awesome. Well, all right. Good luck in both the match and the voting. And
Thank you.
yeah, we'll talk soon.
All right, take care.
Thanks. Welcome back, Wizard. Tell us about your round two submission.
Thanks, Guardian Beast. So my submission is I find Mirage an interesting set because of course it's like roots go back to like the really early days of Magic. I played in the pre-release here in London, so like it's a kind of set even though I've kind of not done anything in old school, like beyond old school, like I've kind of not really thought about the cards. It all kind of came back to me for pretty quick. And I did a list of the cards which felt strong, and then I talked a bit with brother Stebo about his thoughts about the challenge, to kind of socialize it with the team. And there was like a thought about doing like a kind of reanimator deck, but I'm a red mage, and it was hard to like leave Incinerate sitting on the table. Obviously, it appeared in Ice Age first, but it's in Mirage. And then I saw some other really interesting red cards, and I thought, like obviously bringing Incinerate in, hold my hands up. It's pretty aggressive move, when you got Chain and you got Bolt. But I saw other ways of kind of basically trying to complete a project which I've been working on in old school, like proper old school, which it's kind of like almost like my white whale, which is how do you make a powered burn deck, and I thought this gave an interesting like element to that. It kind of hints at what is sadly impossible with real old school, because I'm not sure the powered burn deck actually works. I think it might be like Enchantress, like it's the white whale. Nevertheless, that doesn't mean you don't want to hunt the white whale, right? That's part of life, right? So it's like the old man, it's like Ernest Hemingway. Right. So Incinerate's the base. That's what kind of makes the deck make sense. And then it's all about, and then I kind of splashing blue and black, that's partly because I knew I was drawn against Mano, and there was no way he wasn't going to come at me hard. So I thought I'd give as good as a job, So like in the first week, I was like, add an Oaken Shield and Aela Pile and like Ashlon's Transmogrant. So I kind of went full spice. And maybe I throttled back a tiny bit on the spice this week, but that was just so I could kind of complete this this personal Moby Dick project of like how do you power a burn deck and get it over the line.
Yeah, it's got a lot of interesting choices, and one of my favorite cards actually is Wheel of Fortune, or sorry, Final Fortune. I mean, which you have in the deck, which is really cool. You also have Wheel of Fortune, but that's
that's a mistake.
Hammer's really sweet too. I think that's a great, if you want a red deck to have like a burn deck, especially to have like a reasonable long game, it's pretty powerful, right?
I mean, personally, I'm not sure if Hammer has that much utility. I put it in there kind of for nostalgic reasons, because when I was a kid, I thought it was good. But like, and also because this might sound silly, but I like having conversations with people about the kind of deep flavor of cards. And Stebo and brother Ben and brother Ollie and I, and we sometimes have these geeky conversations about like how is the card constructed in a way that means its deep flavor works. And it was Stebo who kind of came up with the thought that the hammer, it's like 3 red to put it down, because that's like gravity helping you, and then it's 5 red to like raise the hammer again to then bring it down again.
That's awesome.
It's a beautiful image, isn't it? Right. Yeah. So one of those went in. Just kind of, I think the deck would be better without it, to be honest. And then Final Fortune, I think that's such a beautiful card. Like the art's beautiful, the casting cost, it's such a beautifully weighted card, and I couldn't resist the urge to play it with Time Walk, because then I thought you could Final Fortune and Time Walk, and then you've got like 3 turns, and maybe start forking. Well, you couldn't fork the Final Fortune, but there would be a lot of points. But fork the Time. And I just thought that was kind of a nice little kind of thing you can't do in old school, like proper old school. Kind of a bit of fun. And then some of the spicier picks. The Goblin Tinkerer. I'm a goblin guy. There's a couple of goblins in here, the Balloon Brigades, and the Tinkerer. I just thought like he eats moxes. One red for a 1/2 dude. I think it's red and tap, destroy an artifact, and it deals its casting cost to the Tinkerer. So I just thought, it's a bit like the Zedek Poltergeist Mox trick. But it's a bit of a different flavor. or maybe you'd you know, he could eat something pretty good. He's like a shatter on a stick. So I thought that was a bit of a slightly left field pick. And then I guess the most left field pick of all is the Ember Wild Gin, which is a card I'd completely forgotten existed. And I looked at it and I thought, maybe it's like years of playing old school convincing me that creatures are nearly all terrible. But like I looked at that and I thought, damn, that's good. You know, if you can get a bit of an edge, so it's 2 and 2 red, 5/4 flyer. During each player's upkeep, they pay 2 red or 2 life to gain control of it. And I thought you could really put someone under a bit of pressure with that, because you know you're getting this great value creature. You know, with the Lotus, pretty good shot at getting that down turn 1. You're playing 3 copies as I am, so I just thought that's a bit of a spicy left field pick. But you know, with this much burn, I'm going to get a life advantage pretty quick. I had Copper Tablet in the deck at one point, and then I took the Copper Tablet out. But the principle was the same, which is like get ahead of someone and then create conditions that they can't kind of maintain, you know, like create of inevitability in the game. And he just struck me as a cool version of that. And like he's bolt proof. Okay, he might get swordsed, but anything can get swordsed. And that kind of pay 2 red or 2 life, I thought was pretty sweet. So I thought it was a cool card.
Yeah, it's an interesting mechanic, simply because, well, you know, if you're playing in a red heavy metagame, maybe that's not quite as good. But I really do like the kind of, I think against a lot of people, you're going to have to force them to pay the 2 life. Otherwise, you just get a very low costed 5/4 flyer, which is pretty great. And it's really good. I like it.
Beats up Surrendered, beats up Jazam, beats up you know, well, I mean, it dies to Jazam, but you know, like it doesn't need to stick around necessarily to do what it needs to do. And then it's an Efreet, but it doesn't die to City in a Bottle. Like you need to play the Suleiman's Revenge from Mirage to kind of kill it. I just was kind of tempted to play that card because I just thought it was quite funny. But and you know, I'll hold my hand up. You know, there's a Mind Twist and an Ancestral, but you know, I kind of felt like I knew Mano was going to come packing something good. And I thought, you know, I deserve to use these cards. Plus, I only own them in like square cornered edition, which we don't really use in this country. So it's kind of rare for me to get a chance to roll them out, and kind of makes me happy as well. So yeah. So I'm not. I mean, it's interesting thought experiment for me though. Like, you know, is this the powered burn deck? You know, and it kind of hints what could be possible. So I'm kind of interested to see how it plays out.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, one other last thought I had was every time I see Final Fortune, I always think about how the original Time Walk was a red card. If you like see the old playtest cards or whatever, like there was a red. What is it?
Is it called Starburst? Is it 2 in the red?
Something like that. I think it says like R and 2, but then in the playtest cards that was 2 mana and 1 had to be red, right? But it's always neat. It always makes me think about that, and it's like they went down that route and then said, well, even that was probably too good anyway. Even if you just make it red, right? You know, like you're kind of taking a restricted blue card and moving it to another color, it's a very fixed Time Walk is what it is, you know, and it's good. It's still a good card, but it's not broken by any means, I don't think so.
That's one of the things I like about, you know, like I'm pretty committed to old school only, but I know that kind of in the years playing Magic since, you can see them trying to fix all these cards, and sometimes they do it very elegantly. Things like Lotus Petal, you know, sometimes they do it more inelegantly, like Lion's Eye Diamond. And Final Fortune is one of those ones where they really nail it, you know, fair play to them, you know. And they're kind of going back into that vein, you know, with all the fan service in the most recent set. There's something about that, you know, what it essentially plays back to is this, like, the law of Magic and ultimately Alpha, just how good it is, you know. And even by making these small changes, they can create incredibly interesting game effects. And I guess I'm kind of abusing that because I'm using the fixed Lightning Bolt as well as Lightning Bolt. But, you know, that's kind of, you know, the format's there to be explored in that way. Hopefully I'm building to a bigger goal. The red mages at least will understand. We'll see what the voting public have to say about that.
Awesome. Well, yeah, with that in mind, good luck in the voting and also in the game match that you have to play. So
yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I hope Mano is going to be bringing his A game. Should be good fun.
I'm sure he will. So yeah. All right. Thanks, Jonas, and good luck.
Thanks, mate.
All right, welcome to round 2 of the Brewmaster Challenge. We have Mano versus Jonas, and I'm here with the great DFB.
Hey, everybody.
So we have an interesting round here. They're shuffling up, so I thought I would, while they do mulligans and whatnot, I thought I would just kind of explain the format a little bit, what we're doing here. So the two players have previously built rounds or decks in round 1, in which they got to build an old school deck that also contained a single pre-modern card. So Mano built a deck around opposition in that round, and Jonas built a deck around Goblin Welder during that round. For round 2, they had to build another deck in which they could use any cards from Mirage that they wanted. So Mano went down a route playing, he has a handful of Mirage cards, but it's kind of centered around Mystical Tutor. And Jonas kind of went down the route of a deck with, got to utilize a lot of red cards from Mirage, including Incinerate, things like that, playing a red burn deck. So the way that the round actually works here is they have to essentially win once with each of their 2 decks. So meaning as soon as they win with a single deck of theirs, then that deck is retired for the match, and they have to then only play their remaining deck. So it should be pretty interesting little format. Just that dichotomy, no sideboards, right? I think makes it also kind of interesting. You don't have to worry about any of that. It's just dive right into another game. And so anyways, that's where we are, and looks like there's still mulliganing. I think Mano's going to 5.
This is exciting. I don't know. I think there's a whole prisoner's dilemma sort of situation here where you don't know which of the you know what your opponent has access to, sort of, but you don't know which of the decks that they're going to choose, and vice versa. Sure. So we're gonna see in a second here which way which direction they chose. It's kind of an interesting psychological game here afoot.
Yeah, and one thing to point out is, I mean, like you said, there's a little bit of a dilemma because they know presumably what their opponent's round 1 deck was, right? But they haven't seen each other's round 2 decks, right, when they play this match. So their other deck is still a mystery to them, technically.
Oh, I see.
We know right now, right? But they do not.
All right,
so.
Trop, go.
All right.
So here we go. We actually got some gameplay to watch here.
I'm gonna make Balloon Brigade.
Okay.
So,
Crap.
Jonas is off to the races and just going straight to the face. Huh?
Yeah, some classic Jonas cards, I'd say.
Do we know from the Trops which deck this puts Mano on?
Not exactly, because he was playing like an opposition deck with green cards in it. So, but I'm pretty sure we know Jonas is playing his Mirage deck.
Mm-hmm.
Copy your mock.
Yeah, I think this puts us on Mano's opposition deck.
Give you a piece of Mirage, I'll incinerate you.
And Jonas is just burning him out, basically.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Mountain.
Jeez. This may be over in short order. Yeah, Mano's at 6 already. Yeah, it's oh, that's tricky. Orb is such a in this scenario. I personally hate having an orb. Yeah.
What does Orb even do here, right?
Nothing. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
it's something.
I'll try to orbit on this.
Oh, he missed.
Lost.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. Missed doesn't.
Well,
yeah. Yeah, well, the good news is
I hate having orb during stressful scenarios like that, right? It's just
well, stressful, and not even like before the ball lightning came down, right? It's a situation of like what you can't counter burn with it. You're paying 3 mana to kill a Bloom Brigade, which feels completely terrible and worthless. I honestly like the ball lightning was a gift of a target there. I think for the Chaos Orb. Definitely something relevant that you could actually effectively use the orb as a counter spell. But Mano was already all the way back on his heels in that one, and I think he just wanted to make it to the next game.
Yeah, it's you can see just to be clear, Jonas is moving a few cards because he has some cards that are common between both of his decks, of course.
I feel a bit bad about that last one.
So Jonas can't play the burn deck again.
Correct.
Okay.
There's a story.
Yeah.
I mean,
So now he has to be on the Goblin Welder.
Exactly. Yeah. Which honestly, I think is a pretty cool deck. It was one of my favorite decks from the first round for sure.
Oh yeah, mine too. Which is unfortunate because I was paired against him in the first round.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh damn, this is really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hate it.
So I'm happy to see it in action here. And so for Mano, like he can stay on the deck that he just played, or he can switch here. Is that?
Yeah. Okay. He can do whichever he wants. Yeah. Also, there's another card that I know Mano has at least mentioned to me in the past, along with its counterpart in Mirage. So there are some like sort of bad Black Vice / the Rack cards in Mirage. So he's kind of on like a balance rack thing.
Is Pauper's Cage in Mirage?
I think that's the right one. Yeah.
This one I can keep, I think. Yeah.
Pauper's Cage at the end of target opponent's upkeep. If that player has 2 or fewer cards in hand, Pauper's Cage deals 2 damage. Well, I mean, so less than 3 cards, 2 damage, no matter whether you're on 2 cards, 1 card, or 0 card. I think that's like okay. It costs 3 to bring down is the issue.
Yeah, it's just more mana.
Yeah, it's a reasonable card. So you could play like an 8-rack type situation.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's the route he went down. I kind of wonder. I've heard him also recently kind of talk about revised 40 and playing the balance rack deck. So I wonder if that influenced his choice here.
It's going to be 1 US trip, and this one's a bit too close to New Card.
I also love his playmat. That's very clearly a 2000s Worlds playmat.
I'm likely to get to LobsterCon too, so I will definitely see.
Yeah, I see a lot of that playmat in his his deck photos.
I thought it was great. Like the right amount of people in the room. I really.
I think they're talking about MobsterCon doing a bit of a.
It was a perfect
debrief.
People, really, the tournament did not feel overwhelming, and it was still a good amount.
Honestly, I very much enjoy these
logistics were great.
webcam style games.
I think everybody
not only are they actually reasonably practical, but
when you're
also
in the trenches.
I think it's just great how we can have Mano and Jonas playing just on an arbitrary Sunday afternoon.
No, I mean your friend across the ocean, you can have like a real like normal human conversation with them. No, it's so much different from playing on Moto or something where you just have the chat box. You really get a sense for the human being on the other end. You can see what they're drinking. I've definitely made a ton of friends in the scene over the last 3 years playing on Skype.
I was kind of excited when the day got going roughly without any hiccups. And
I'm also excited about Mano's opposition deck. Honestly, like those were both of their decks from round 1 were decks that I was pretty excited about. I played
really sweet,
a lot of opposition as well many years ago, so it's a sight for sore eyes, I suppose.
Yeah, it's a cool card. I had obviously never heard of it.
I mean, there was like a fixed one. I've played like a lot of Magic just kind of throughout. I maybe stopped playing for
I'm keeping on the play
2 to 3 years. Like during I didn't play during Invasion and Odyssey Block, like that stuff. But otherwise, I pretty much played just continuously and. So they made like a fixed one later, but it doesn't tap lands, so it's like way worse than.
Particularly like bloodlust it on someone. It's just
it's a card. Like in any of these weird formats where you just don't really have to.
So what are your general thoughts on Mirage? given this this round's additional brewing.
I actually I love Mirage as a set, and I sort of have in a way I sort of have more nostalgic feelings about Mirage than I do about Ice Age. For whatever reason, like Ice Age just kind of felt like a commodity to me when I was a kid because it was everywhere. And Mirage, like I remember very distinctly, like buying my first Mirage starter at a game store up in Vermont when I was like on a family vacation or something like that. I'm like, oh, these cards are beautiful. I love the aesthetic, just the feel and the design of the set overall. And it was the end of the time that I was really playing the game as a kid. So Mirage came out in 1996, and I would have been 13 years old. And yeah, I think sort of put the cards down pretty soon thereafter. I didn't play during Tempest Block. So yeah, I enjoyed the set very much. And actually, a couple of years ago, we did a Mirage sealed tournament with four players on Skype.
Nice.
Within the old school scene. Me, Matt Moss, David Montag, and David Chambers played like a Mirage sealed tourney amongst ourselves and just had a great time.
That's awesome. Yeah.
All right, so we've got a Bazaar of Baghdad.
Yeah, in a library from Mano.
Oh, I see. So Bazaar is a way of getting like fat artifact creatures like Tetravus into the bin for the welder, right?
Right, exactly. He wasn't playing too many. He discarded the other one. I think he just had 2 in his deck.
Yeah, I think we've seen all of them already. Yep.
Yeah. He also mulliganed to 6. Jonas did. So.
And Mano's riding the library here.
Yeah.
See. Go ahead.
I do love a Bazaar, Bazaar and workshop. I love it.
Yeah, you don't say that very often.
That's true.
Yep.
All right, so that's a pretty good turn 2 threat from Jonas.
Yeah.
Especially if Mano's just sitting back on library. This is something that has to be answered pretty much right away.
Yeah. Library is just an amazing Magic card.
Yeah, it's pretty good, right?
Yeah, so we'll see what happens. It's just the whole, draw an extra card, play one thing or 2 things, depending on if you have to play a land and answer their threat, know. But you can just keep doing that endlessly.
Yeah, as long as you're willing to slowly meter out your board development, you get a personal Howling Mine in return, which seems pretty good.
Play a land. Draw.
All right, so we've got a Trop. Maybe this is the same deck, the token deck, you think?
Well, I think the last time, I think he had to have been on the other deck because I don't think he had Copy Artifact in his opposition deck.
That makes sense.
So, but the lands are all very similar. And actually, he's got an Underground here. I'm not sure if he had Underground in the other one. There weren't that many black cards in his opposition deck, so I think this must be his
Mirage deck.
Rack balance Mirage deck, yeah.
I'll play
and what is the green doing in that brew?
I think he has Sylvan Library and just a couple other minor things, but I think it was mostly Sylvan Library. Sylvan Library and Regrowth, I think.
I see.
Because you get a nice shuffle effect out of the various tutors, and I think he threw in a couple.
Yeah, right. If you're playing a full grip of Mystical Tutor, Sylvan Library, it's fine.
Yeah, he also played a couple. So technically, Mirage gives you like the bad fetch lands, right? Like that comes into play tapped ones.
Sure, yeah.
So he gets a couple shuffles out of that too. So I think he quite liked.
Yeah, I'm digging this quite a bit. So I assume he's copied the Suchi here.
Yeah.
To get himself a blocker.
Yes, definitely.
And if he's racking, Jonas has got to be careful with those bizarre activations, right? You can only do that, a couple times before you really dug yourself into a hole and make yourself vulnerable.
Yeah. Yeah, one thing I have enjoyed about
I'll discard a
this
bolt
game so
mountain
far
bad
is just
Sure.
I don't know, strange combinations of cards that we've seen.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, I'll block.
Yeah.
Mostly from Jonas, to be
You have any
fair.
cards now,
We
too?
haven't seen a ton of things out of Mano.
Yeah,
That first game ended pretty quick, but
You don't see Bazaar and Workshop together on the field
Yeah.
every day. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I want to see a welder, damn it.
yeah,
Um,
the namesake card.
I'll
Pretty much the perfect deck to choose, or the perfect card to choose for Jonas. I think it fits in quite well. I think.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It embodies that his red mage spirit.
oh, that's really
What?
sad.
All right, Mano's in the tank here.
He is, yeah, I can tell.
I'll play a Mox, and
He's got to do something cool now, right?
I'm on the edge of my seat.
I
He says
will
go.
say
All right.
go.
Or past the turn, sure.
This is definitely drastically different from our previous
How
game.
many cards in your hand?
Much slower.
7.
Yeah, quite.
Going to use the workshop.
Okay.
Chaos Orb.
Um,
Yeah, sorry.
I will.
It's going to force the disenchant. Make him
Yeah.
use it right here.
Sure, that's fine.
No.
So I'll activate it.
Oh, come on, Jonas.
Pass the turn.
All right. I mean, so it was clear he had the disenchant there.
Draw. This is a weird one.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
'Cause
I'm not sure how
he-
Jonas really gets out of this, to be fair.
He didn't have counter mana, but he's clearly like considering what to do with the Chaos Orb on the stack. Like he's got the disenchant. He telegraphs that pretty hard.
Yeah.
I'll play.
All right. Well, okay.
Tutor.
Let the tutoring begin.
Yeah,
Is this now? Mano's still writing library, right?
yeah,
I mean, you don't even need ancestral at this point.
yeah. I mean, that's probably
I'll
true.
play,
Okay.
There we go.
A rack.
Yeah, just start grabbing win cons
and I'll say.
So, yeah, rack in a land and say go. Yeah.
Because I got one card in hand, so I take.
So
Yeah,
Jonas
he-
is starting to take rack damage right off the
Yeah,
bat here.
he just needs a win condition, I think, is really all he was thinking about with that too.
Yeah, exactly.
Pass the turn.
And I expect to see some kind of discard spell here.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Probably.
The awkward thing about writing library in a deck where you want to be balancing is you're keeping a full hand instead of getting yourself down nice and low and
I'll
racing to the bottom. Okay, so there's the twist for 2.
Yep. I'll lightning bolt you for 3.
Bolt and response, sure.
I'll
Yeah,
block
okay.
it.
And now Jonas
Go
is
ahead.
taking six a turn.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's lights
12.
lights out unless Jonas has
Yeah.
Pass the turn.
I mean, he's already used his Chaos Orb. I don't know how much other artifact like spot removal he might have.
I think he's got a shatter or two, if I recall his deck
Yeah.
list.
And there's the third.
Yeah.
Pauper's Cage.
That's a Pauper's Cage.
So now he's taking 8 a turn.
It's like the rack, but it deals 2 or less cards.
Yeah.
It deals 2 damage.
The Pauper's Cage explanation.
Some classic Mirage enabled 8 racking here
Yeah.
from Mano. I like this very much. So it looks like we're going to go to a game 3.
I think so. Yeah. I mean,
Yep.
Oh wait, so
Mirage.
I am.
Yeah, Jonas is on like
using,
a
He's
2-turn
taking
clock.
4. No, I
Yeah, 6 total, right?
6 total.
6 total, so I'm at 12
Yeah.
down to 6.
Yep.
Draw. Pass the turn.
I mean, yeah, he's technically not dead.
Yeah, I mean, he can't even do anything, though. He can't
Yeah.
play anything out of his hand.
Yeah.
Draw.
Yeah, I love that dynamic. that like the rack, once you get far enough along, like your opponent literally can't get out of it because they can't.
Yeah.
You need to use cards to get out of it.
Yeah.
If you use cards, you take more damage.
Yeah, he rewrote the Mind Twist, and that's
Sick.
that's game.
Hopefully our third match.
Okay, so now we have to have token opposition versus Goblin Welder.
Yep.
Perfect.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
Library and Mana Screw. That's perfect.
Yeah, so at least we got to see
I was
Mano's
thinking
deck
about
kind
that
of
thing,
do
so
its
the-
thing a
the
little
main
bit. I
TV
mean,
show, and it's like
yeah, that's
like a third of the episode doesn't involve anything happening because the characters.
I definitely can appreciate an 8-rack deck.
Yeah, right.
It's
love that
definitely an interesting space to
be
kind of exist in.
Deck.
Oh, definitely. No, I've explored that space actually in regular 93-94 with
You have to stay because
you have Stormworld, which is like an additional rack effect, and then you also have Copy Artifact, which you can use as virtual racks when you have a rack on the board.
Sure.
Tried a version of that with like Mind Stab Thralls, really like lay it on thick with the discard theme. In those experiments, like maybe a year or so ago, are kind of what led me to working on what I guess we call the Spice Rack archetype now. Which I worked on with Mano and with Will McGran and Svante and some of our other friends. So
Sure.
Pretty aggressive.
Yeah, I think that's probably the
honestly,
better evolution of the discard kind of space in 93-94, but having access to additional racks and other ways of pulling up your tutor and twist, or sorry, your balance and your twist with Mystical Tutor is pretty damn good.
Mike, was that the content you were hoping for?
So it's a pretty spicy approach. I know it's spiky in that Mystical Tutor is a very strong card, but it's a spicy application of it, I think, from Mana.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of like other ways that you could go. I mean, I'm sure Mystical Tutor in the deck, for instance, would be a perfectly reasonable thing to do, right? Like a reasonable choice to make if you're just trying to build the best deck. Yeah. So it's definitely with the way that we do the points for this round, right? So we take whatever the vote is, and then whoever wins this game match that they're currently playing, they also get 30 additional bonus % added on. So you have to walk a fine line, right? I mean, you need to be able to win games, but you also need to get enough votes, right? So
you need to win games while winning hearts and minds with your spice.
Yeah. So it's not a practical approach for like your normal Magic tournament, right? Because it's incredibly difficult to manage that type of environment, but I feel like it's sort of the optimal place to be in, right? Like you get interesting decks that you don't normally see, and then they also tend to be at least reasonable to play, and there's a good amount of strategy going into them, and people are trying to make good choices.
It seems like the Guardian really thought this through.
Idea that we all have of you just to cash it in now so you can cheat in the Brewmaster's challenge too. That could have been your long con.
Well, I'm not gonna like win any prizes for like gameplay. So I may as well try and become famous by being a loudmouth on the internet.
I like the banter.
I don't know. You thought you played that game pretty well. You cast one Suchi. That was pretty good, I thought. I mean, what else could you have done?
Oh man.
Yeah. I didn't expect him to live. Okay.
All right.
Well, hopefully we get a chance to see Jonas's deck do its thing for a bit here.
There's definitely like a firing on all cylinders version of Jonas's deck, I think, and I definitely hope we get to see that.
Whereas
also,
does Mano have like Tetravis and Vacation Town and stuff like that?
I'm pretty sure he has one copy of Vacation Town. I don't remember seeing a Tetravis. He does have a one of those new cards from Legends. The one that makes all the tokens. Or how many lands you've got.
Oh, Hazazon tomorrow?
Yeah, he's got a Hazazon in there.
Oh, okay, so he's on. I thought Opposition was a blue card.
It is a blue card.
But he has access to is it Naya mana?
Yeah,
to make Hazazon?
Card, but
Sure.
Like is one of your mana sources.
Makes perfect sense.
Workshop, and it's like actually I haven't got a lot I can put down.
And then a number of other things, but I think
I'd rather have had another mountain.
There's some other token cards though. Now that
You really have to.
I'm forgetting what they are off the top of my head, but
commit to shop. It's kind of like ball lightning, right? Like you can't just.
Yeah, I'm picturing token opposition as like a blue-white deck with max mana vaults, Tetris, Acacian Town,
not full on shopping.
and
really wanted a regular land.
yeah, and blue for opposition and maybe copy artifact or something. So I'm excited to see. Excited to see this build.
Okay.
yeah, I think if I remember, he went down like the green path because it gave him like birds and stuff like that, which helped fix the mana, but also later just tap stuff down with opposition.
Right. If you've got a whole swarm of mana dorks, you can use them under opposition, like icy manipulators.
Well, we have quite the start from Jonas here.
What's he gonna do?
Well, he did that and then passed the turn. So
Nothing. Yeah.
nothing. Yeah.
Triskelion Tetris. No, just go.
Just a million mana.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mhm.
He's breaking my heart.
We have ancestral.
So he has
for
8.
mana.
End of turn.
9. Yeah, so he could fireball for 9 here.
That's true.
Draw. Play Savannah and
Make sure you want to do that.
Sylvan.
Seems incorrect.
I'm gonna have to discard. Let me just see what I'm
Moving to discard.
hmm
Um,
I think I heard some commentary from.
From Janine.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hope Jonas draws like
I'm gonna
Something.
discard.
to cast with all that.
Yeah. I mean, as soon as he does, it's going to be clearly a very, very solid threat, right?
Yeah, or Sylvan Library can't really block either. So
Right.
Discard Old Man of the Sea.
Cool.
Your turn.
is that an old man of the sea?
Yeah, that is an old man of the sea.
All right,
I'll make a welder.
Oh,
Okay.
perfect. Yep.
that's the welder.
Yeah.
Pass the turn.
All right.
Yeah, Jonas and I talked about this a little bit, like just what the kind of cool things are that you can do with this card in here. And one of the things I think was kind of neat is the interaction with Suchi, because you can like kill your own Suchi or swap your Suchi with the card in your graveyard. And the way that the card's worded, you're technically sacrificing the thing in play and then bringing the thing from the graveyard back into play. Like, so you get the mana out of Suchi technically. So you can use it as a ramp, sort of, right?
Oh yeah, sure.
Just kind of, we talked about that a while ago.
Yeah, I love Suchi's sacrifice antics.
Mhm.
I've played Suchi at times with the actual card sacrifice, the black card. With that, if you cast on a Suchi, it gives you like 4 colorless and 4 black, and parlay that into a big fireball or a Colossus or something crazy.
Keep
Mhm.
the 1 and play Caracas, Sapphire.
That's great. Okay,
Nice.
Nice.
Your turn.
well,
Man, it's doing my head in.
Welder's not going anywhere for a while.
Yeah. The other cool thing about Welder is you can also do it to your opponent.
Okay.
So you can like kill their, good stuff and give them their mocks back.
Oh, that's cute.
All right. 1, 2. Whoops. 3.
Hey, sorry, man. Have you? What's in your bin? You got Old Man of the Sea. And
Old Man and Ancestral.
Oh yeah, of course. Cool.
Yep. I'll just keep the 1.
Yeah, I forgot that there was an Azure Drake in his deck. I think that's a one of Azure
Just
Drake.
the one of.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
It is some great artwork. I will say that. I do love the Azure Drake artwork.
Oh, it's a beautiful card.
Yeah, I'll just keep the 1.
It would be a lot more powerful if it weren't so easily distracted.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
Play a library.
Rubinia, okay.
Hmm.
Oh, this deck is brutal.
Your turn.
Mhm.
She's the one who taps to take.
So he's got
creatures, right?
steely guys.
Yeah, cool.
Like he can steal your guys and use your guys that he's stolen to tap down your other
Just
guys.
Mhm.
Cool, okay.
It's gnarly.
Yeah, there's a bunch of cool one-of cards in Mano's
Go
deck.
into the
Just
tank for a minute here.
Sure.
because they did different things. Like there's always the Caracas has his on thing, so he has that going on. He has the Caracas in play right now.
Yeah.
He's obviously a few mana short, but
Sure, but he can get his Rubinia out of trouble. Like basically makes the Rubinia immune to removal.
right.
Which is pretty great.
Okay, I'm gonna.
So now Jonas can fireball for 12, 13, 14.
That's 3 in the pool.
Yeah, I got him.
Yeah.
Then I'll tap that for 3. So that's 6 in the pool.
Yep.
It's 9 in the pool.
Yep.
It's 11 in the pool.
He did quite a bit of thinking before this too. So
12, 13, 14, 15 in the pool.
Yep.
And then I'll
4. Oh no.
damp the welder in the bin.
oh, okay.
He's gonna cycle his
In the
Lotus
pool,
back up.
Lotus.
Stack it
I'll
again.
stack it again. So that's 18 in the pool.
Okay. I trust your man. Sure.
So I'll fireball you for 17.
Oh, me for 17. Okay.
Just assumed his guys were dying.
Right.
I mean,
Just-
that's pretty reasonable, right?
Fireball that turns all your bolts into lethal. Essentially.
Yeah, and not just that, right? So he's playing like trike and things like that too. So
Yeah, I guess I passed
so
the
it seems like a good plan. Rather than killing his guys.
Using the welder to cycle the tapped mana bolt into it, the Lotus was pretty marvelous.
Yeah, got rid of a mana vault that I suppose he could untap, but now he doesn't have to take any damage, and then
Indeed.
also ramped 3 extra mana. Seems.
And he can also weld back the Lotus again next turn. He doesn't really have to untap the vault if he doesn't want to.
Yeah.
He could also switch the tapped vault for an untapped vault with the welder if you wanted to.
Yeah, that's true.
Which is pretty fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's probably one of the biggest fireballs I've ever seen anyone cast.
Just 17. Yeah.
I'm sure
that's
bigger ones would happen.
Outside of the infinite fireballs, I suppose that you sometimes see out of Power Monolith bills, right? But those,
yeah, sure.
But 17 is a much more exciting number than like infinite.
Infinite, yeah. Yeah, just cast the good old-fashioned way.
So now Jonas, as we said, Jonas has like a million live draws.
Yeah.
For lethal here.
I mean, I think Mano just has to. He drew a library, but that was later, right? So so it's not doing him much good. And
just attack with your guys.
Yeah, I mean, you just have to power through, right?
There we go.
Attacking for 4.
Yeah.
And just try to race.
What's Rubinia's power? Is like 2.
I think it's a 2/3. Yeah.
2/3. That sounds right. It's a 2/3.
Sinbad.
Sinbad Sylvan Library going on.
Sinbad Sylvan is quite the combo. Yeah.
Play Sinbad. And play a land.
Flavor Failure out of Arabian Nights.
Nice. So,
2 Sinbads in play.
In my upkeep, before this hurts me, can I?
Pre-legendary, right?
Yeah.
I think you can. Yeah.
I'll undo that. So I'm going to swap the mana vault for a Lotus.
Sure.
What do you got, Jonas? The end.
Lightning bolt you?
Yeah. Did you have that one or did you draw that one?
Yeah, you just ripped it off the top, just like we said.
Wow.
So much. I didn't have many turns to.
Fireball for 17 really put you in good position.
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah, that's true.
My welder went off with the.
Well, at least we got to see some Goblin Welder happening here.
I mean,
Definitely.
I guess that one turn, what did he do?
I guess that's why he was thinking about it, right? Because using Welder there actually puts him into the possibility of just drawing Bolt later or Trike later or whatever. So.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
that was pretty cool. There's a lot of interesting cards in play, and
3, 4.
Yeah.
I was counting your mana.
I,
2, 3, 4,
Thanks for
5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
thanks for having me on to do this. This was a fun match to watch.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, sure,
Yeah,
definitely.
exactly.
Not
yeah,
your
we
typical
will-
old school match for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's. I mean, not that old school on its own isn't great,
you had
right? But
4 bolts and
but there's
I
something
think 4
just
Titans in
exciting
the
about
back.
adding just a tiny
Yeah,
little
that's why
bit of
that's
extra
why I didn't want to untap the mana
extra
bolts, 'cause I
something,
thought
you know.
if I
Yeah.
And
tried, I
just
could
doing that
spend
once in a
that.
while, it's
Oh,
it's
for
good
sure,
fun.
Yeah, and I basically
100%.
I just had to kind of try and race you.
So, all right,
I
well,
know real
thanks
powers,
for
like
joining
one
me,
man
Dave,
plane.
and
Yeah.
My
hopefully
ancestral power
maybe we can
through
have you on
through
again,
drive to
commentating another match, perhaps.
Looking forward to it. Thanks again, and thanks everybody for tuning in.
Awesome,
Probably a
thanks.
free-ish
Bye.
turn
See ya.
for you to not draw one of your
Yeah.